I have my friend here with me, Kevin Olusola. And dude, that concert in Brisbane was amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that so much. That was a really, really fun one for us. We hadn't been to Australia in probably, I'd say, 4-ish years. The last time we were there was in kind of 2016. So it was cool to meet our Australian fans once again, and just the concert was fun, man. Australians they definitely throw down when they're
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to.
It was great. We had perfect seats.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Me
yeah,
and my crew,
100%.
we were not front, but we were almost front and center. We had the best seats in the house. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I love you guys so much, and I love what you guys do with Storyline and Arise. So it's my pleasure.
Yeah, yeah. So hey, Kevin, everybody who's tuning in for what we're doing, of course, they know who you are, but they don't know some of the details that maybe would be a launching pad for the discussion that we want to have. So I'm just curious. Let's put it this way: you came out of your mother's womb, and then what? Then what? What's your story, brother? I mean, seriously, you were born, and then what's the first thing that happened?
Sure. I was born in Pasadena, California. I mean, there's more of a backstory to this. My father's from Nigeria. My mom was from Grenada, and they met at a campus called Loma Linda University. My dad was studying for the board so that he could be a psychiatric resident in the United States. And my mom was doing her MPH at Loma Linda, so that's where they met.
All right.
So it's a true immigrant story of, I think, wanting the best for their situation and eventually for their family. That's why they came to the United States. So I was born in Pasadena, and I think a lot of their goals for them, once they finally moved to Philadelphia because of my dad's job, and then eventually to Kentucky where I was raised. And they also had, my two siblings, Kellon and Candace, which my sister.
I do.
I feel like their goal for us was to really have success in the United States. But I think the success is based off of stability, right? In a lot of the places where they come from, there's not as much stability. I mean, my dad always told me his mother would say, if you don't work, you don't eat, because there's no welfare system. There's nothing like that. So you come to the United States because there's a chance for greater opportunity. The laws here are secure enough to where you can navigate and create something for yourself and know that it would be secure. So they really wanted us to do things like medicine, law, engineering, something like that. I mean, mainly medicine because my parents were both health professionals. And so that's what I always thought I was going to do.
You were pursuing specifically medicine, is that right?
Yes, I was going to pursue medicine. So I went to boarding school, and then I eventually went to Yale for undergrad. And while I was there, I was an East Asian Studies major in pre-med.
You were a what? You were a what? Say that a little slower. You were a what?
I was an East Asian Studies major, and I was pre-med student as well. So East Asian Studies just encompassed all of East Asia, understanding the region from a cultural, from a historic, from an economic perspective. And my specific focus was China. I got heavily interested in China while I was in college.
And Chinese, right? I mean, you're interested in the Chinese language.
对，我非常的喜欢说中文。Sorry, which means
you just said something in Chinese. What did you just say, bro? What did you just say in Chinese?
I really love speaking Chinese.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So, so I studied that, and throughout my whole time, my parents wanted to get me into activities and growing up, and one of the things they realized that I loved heavily was music. My parents told me about kind of the specific story when they were doing a long drive, I think from like Florida to California or something like that. And one time on the drive, they asked me, they did this thing with, are you happy you know it? So they go, are you happy you know it? And I would just clap immediately afterwards, but in the right rhythm and beat. And then there's another story where my dad, I think I was about just like 3 or 4 years old or something like that. And my dad said, he was running down the stairs to get to work. And I said, Dad, wait, I want to play you something, because they bought me this electric keyboard. And he said, no, we had to get out the door. And so I started to play House of the Rising Sun, just the melody on the keyboard. And my dad was like, how do you know that? Because it's a song he knows. But I said, I heard it on the keyboard because the keyboard would play songs, and I just played it, what I heard. Wow. And he said, oh my gosh. So he stopped to work that day. He said, I need to put you in music lessons. And so I just
He
started
said, I'm not
taking
even going to work today.
No, he was like, forget this. So he immediately started putting me through music lessons. And I obviously loved music. It was something that I felt a lot of solace and comfort from. I felt like it was something that would come from me naturally, but it wasn't necessarily something I ever thought of as a career. You know, and I would say, you know, this maybe goes to a more of kind of stereotyping in a way. When I saw people on the media, I think what people would show me and say is like, oh, you know, African American people that look like me are supposed to go into the rap game or R&B, or if you do anything else, you're supposed to be in athletics. And so friends would tell me, oh man, you should really go into music. But when they said that, I took that as, oh, you're seeing me as just a musician. You don't see me at all from my intellect. So I was very adamant pushing back on the idea of going into music. So I love music, but I thought that I was always going to go into medicine because that's where I felt like people that looks like me were underrepresented. But I learned in college that God had a completely different plan and a completely different story for me.
Yeah, obviously, you're a Grammy award-winning musician doing worldwide tours, and you had no intentions of doing so. That's amazing to me. I mean, you weren't the kid who said, I'm going to do music as a career. You're the kid that said, you know, I want to study Asia and Chinese, and I want to pursue medicine. And here you are with this phenomenal reach with musical art. It's amazing to me.
Well, yeah, I really appreciate that. I feel like I've learned a lot, especially through the Bible, that sometimes the things that you specifically run from are exactly the things that God is calling you to do.
Yeah.
And he'll let you
Wow.
run and he'll let you have other experiences. But then when God finally awakens you to what you're supposed to do, it's your decision whether you answer the call or not. And I think really, not necessarily that I was running from it. I just truly did not think that's what I was supposed to do. But this, I guess, innate gift or whatever you might want to call it, the thing that God gave me, it's the exact thing that I feel like I didn't realize God was trying to utilize.
Right.
But have those perspectives that I gained to be able to color the art in a specific way that it may look a little bit differently. But it's specific.
It may look a little differently.
You know, it may sound a little bit different, but you know what we do as an acapella group is super different. But you know, all the other experiences help kind of shape the way I can effectively and artistically make music.
But even the contribution that you make to Pentatonics is a unique contribution. Not that there aren't others out there who do similar to what you do, but one of the people that was commenting on your particular gift or your particular version of beatboxing said nobody in the world does what you do. Is that accurate? Or is it like a fingerprint, or is it like a snowflake? I mean, you're just you know, Kevin K.O. the snowflake. You got your own fingerprint, or are you unique? Are you unique only in that sense, or technically, does anybody do what you do?
You know, the thing is, honestly, I think there's incredible beatboxers all over the place. I really do think so. I think probably for me, I think it's the diversity of experiences being a musician that allows me to do specifically what I do for Pentatonics.
Okay.
You know, I don't think, there's so many amazing beatboxers out there, but I think what I have with like how I play cello and beatbox at the same time, it's a certain type of musicality that I think I've bred over time. And I think because of that, there's also a production mindset that has been really important. In addition to playing all these musical instruments, there's a musical arrangement side of me that's, I think, really helpful to where I can specifically use the production side of me to make beats that work within a specific type of musical arrangement for Pentatonics.
Well, I think one of the things that's unique from me being with you, you know, I've been in a small room with you where there's not even a PA system assisting you, and I feel like what you're doing is surrounding my body, and it's just there's just a sheer volume and resonance of sound that is coming out of your body that is just almost unnatural. You're like, whoa, there's a supernatural thing going on here, and yet it's all coming out of your, corporal body. I think one of the unique things about you is that you have a classical background. Can you flesh that out a little bit?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I started off playing classical piano, classical saxophone, classical cello at the ages of like 4, 6, and 10, like respectively. And so I'd always taken classical lessons. I'd always taken musical theory lessons throughout my life, and I did it with even throughout college. And I think that background has been super important in terms of how I learned how to arrange for pentatonics. It allows for interesting musical choices that I feel like only we could do.
Yeah.
And so, like, for example, there's one song, Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, which we won a Grammy for, but that just came from an idea that I had, like making certain kind of classical motifs. And I just took that and arranged it in a certain way that allowed for, I guess, a really amazing arrangement that was recognized by the Grammy. So, I think the background is really interesting to make interesting musical choices.
Yeah, yeah. So also I think it's interesting the fusion between, I mean, you're a beatboxer, but first and foremost, you're a cellist. And
Yeah.
your cello work is amazing, by the way, brother. I just love I've never told you this, but cello, just for the tone, tonally, cello's been my favorite musical instrument for my whole adult life. Just
Oh,
absolutely
wow.
love the tone range that comes out of cello. Just it takes me places just beautiful. But you've got this background in cello, you've got this background with classical music. At one point we were having a conversation and you said something to me to the effect that diehard classical musicians didn't take too kindly to combining classical music with beatboxing. What was that all about?
Oh, I'll definitely. Well, let me tell you the story, even how we even started that, how I started cello boxing. So, as you were referring to, I do this thing called cello boxing, which is combining cello and beatbox, doing them simultaneously. The way it started was I was in China actually for a summer program to study Chinese. And one of my Chinese teachers asked me in Chinese, had I ever thought about putting the cello and the beatbox together? And I said, absolutely not, because that's crazy. Because think about this. You have classical music that has this really rich, hundreds of years of pedagogy, right?
Right.
Strict pedagogy that is, you don't really go outside of the realms of.
This is the way you do it.
Exactly. This is the way you do it. And you can interpret within the pedagogy, within the music, but you don't really go outside and add these different sounds that don't really work within classical music. So I was like, absolutely not. But then at some point, like during my junior year, I said, you know what? Like, forget that. Let me just try it because I do both. And as I started to develop this, I had certain diehard classical people, like my cello teacher, who was just so unbelievably confused at what I was doing. He's like, this doesn't make any sense. This is wrong. But he
wrong.
It's wrong. You don't do this.
Yeah.
But they let me play it in a master class with some of the cello students, like what I was doing. Some people were, once again, ticked off, but then some people thought it was really, really cool because I'm adding this kind of like hip hop kind of flair to this classical music. And some people thought it was really innovative. And it was cool to get that response because what I knew is that if you're doing something polarizing, that means I'm making art.
Yeah,
that was important.
What? You said if I'm doing something polarizing, I'm making art.
Yes, 100%. I believe that because you have a statement, you have something that you want to say. And if you have something to say, I think not everybody's going to agree with it, but that's perfectly fine. At least you're making a statement rather than doing something that just the whole world kind of easily understands. And
yeah, not to take this in the direction of history and politics and presidents, but Abraham Lincoln, of course, said you can please some of the people all of the time and all of the people some of the time, but you can't please all of the people all of the time. So
exactly.
you got to be you, the one authentic you that you are in God's image.
Exactly. That is what I feel like a lot of our lives are about. Just kind of discovering and understanding the unique fingerprint God gave you specifically, and then cultivating that in a way where you can
Mm,
hopefully help your fellow man in the way that God
yeah,
uniquely
yeah.
called you to do it.
So just talk about that for a minute, Kevin. So you love Jesus. It's so obvious.
Oh, 100% sold
You
out.
know, we've connected, you and I, first and foremost around Jesus and secondarily around music.
Right.
You love Jesus. Why do you love Jesus? What's flesh that out? What in the world is it about Jesus that attracts someone like you? I mean, you can do anything you want with your life. You have fame, you have money, you can basically just flip off the world and do anything you want, and yet you choose Jesus. Why?
That's a really good question. And I think you can bring that down into a certain fundamental. And I think that fundamental is joy.
Mm-hmm.
For me, what Jesus provides is a security and joy
Mm,
that, because he uniquely made me with a unique fingerprint, if he understands what he created me for, then my purpose was completely designed by him.
mm-hmm.
If that's the case, then if it's like a car maker. If a car maker makes a car, that
Yeah,
maker understands how that car is supposed to run. Now
yeah.
you can do stuff
The car
outside
maker
of that.
understands the thing he
100%.
made better than anybody else.
Exactly. So that's perfectly fine. You can do stuff outside of that. Like if it says put premium gas in, you can put unleaded gas. That's perfectly fine. Do that. It just might not run as efficiently as possible, and you might not get the best use out of that car.
Mm,
But for me, it's that I think that with all the things that I've been given, and I think for every single person, with the things that they've been given, it was uniquely given to you by God. And therefore, God knows exactly the way that you'll find the greatest amount of joy in that life. And I didn't say happiness because you're going to go through things, but the innate joy knowing
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
there's a heavenly Father that's right next to you, allowing you to do the purpose that you're called for. And
yeah,
so that's
yeah.
why I believe in Jesus.
Mm,
There's nothing like it. There's
wow,
nothing like
wow,
it. And
wow.
that's honestly why it's the reason I do music.
Well, Kevin, one of the reasons I wanted to spend this time together is to give people a window in to creative process.
Sure.
I'm convinced that creativity itself, in the general sense, is a gift from God. So
Yeah.
the line of reasoning goes something like this: that God is the singular definitive creator. That
Mm-hmm.
God is the creator. So if God is the creator, well, it logically follows that God is creative. That is to say, God is an artist. I mean, just look at everything from, the hummingbird to the platypus and everything in between. So God is creative and he created us. Therefore, we as human beings, as a part of our fulfillment and being who we are, is to be creative. Now, I love the definition of creativity given by Albert Einstein. He said,
Ooh.
Albert Einstein, he said, creativity is intelligence having fun.
Love
Well,
that.
think about this. Think
I love
about
that.
yeah. Creativity is intelligence having fun, and that's what I've encountered in our friendship. Is I see in you, when I'm with you and when I see you perform, I see a very high level of intelligence that is operable in the creative realm. But the other thing I notice is while you're exercising your creative intelligence, bro, it is so obvious that you're having fun. You're having fun when you do it, right?
I appreciate that a lot. And it keeps me youthful. It keeps me vivacious. It's super fun because you get to, like, the most amazing thing is that you get to close your eyes and see what is unseen with creativity. When
Mm,
I get to close my ears and make sounds that nobody else can hear yet. And there's
wow.
something about that process which it takes kind of course, like an intellect, but it also takes a technical prowess. And
Yeah,
so that's why I compare, like, you have to combine the two to be able to make what you hear come out. And
yeah,
so I
yeah.
just find that I find that left brain, right brain kind of combination really fun to figure out, because
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes I'm like, I hear these things, but I don't necessarily know how to do it. And that's when you have to, there's a progress there that you have to have in your technical ability. So it's, I don't know, there's just something about that that is always super fun, and I can't get
yeah.
enough of it.
Well, like in my situation, I can hear melodies in my head. You know, I can
Right.
write a song in my head, but
Yeah,
I don't
and you've
have the.
written songs, by the
Yeah.
way.
What's that?
You've written songs for me.
Yeah, I have written songs for you. Well,
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
written more, but those are just lyrics. I can actually hear melodies in my head, but my point is I can't produce them. I can't play an instrument. I can't take what's in my head and bring it out for anybody to hear. You have this incredible gift from God. I think it's a gift from God that you have what you just called the technical prowess. You can actually hear something in your head that nobody's ever heard before, and then you can say, okay, I'm going to take that out of myself, out of my head, and I'm going to put it in a form that other people can hear and enjoy. Man, what is that? That is a gift. It's an extraordinary gift to take something that's going on inside of you. Now, I do that, not with music. I'm a writer, of course. And
Exactly. Yeah,
so I
yeah.
have thoughts going on in my head and I write them, composing sentences and so on. And I've written a lot of songs, the lyrics of the songs, as you know.
Mhm.
But man, that you can hear a melody in your head and then just, produce that for other people to hear.
Oh man.
And so you are a songwriter, aren't you?
Very much so. I mean, I write a ton of songs. I mean, for my own personal project, for Pentatonics, of course, and what you said with the gift, I do appreciate it. But once again, God gives gifts to so many people. I think that the thing is, the goal is that it's the work that we have to do to cultivate it.
Yeah,
And that's the only reason, just like you, with all the things that you've done with all the writing of the books, those aren't things that just kind of come. You have this thing, but you've
yeah,
also cultivated
yeah,
the
that's right.
necessary tools to do that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think sometimes a lot of people forget that's a really important piece of this whole thing. God gave, the story of the talents. You can obviously have the talents that God gives you, but if you don't cultivate it, how can God give you more? How can God put you on a
yeah,
higher platform? God called David to be king of Israel, right? But he still had to go tend to the sheep
yeah,
first
yeah.
and to cultivate certain things. And he had to go through certain things for a long period of time before he was right to be king. So that the things that he thought about as a king that should be right, he could actually do because he has the prowess to do that. So I think that's always something that people
Cultivation,
forget and need to do.
cultivation, cultivation. You have to actually build
100%.
skills. Even if you have natural talent, you have to
Yeah.
build skills.
You have to
There are
build
a
it.
few young writers that I mentor, some writers, and just kind of coach them forward. And recent conversation, one of these young, she has a gift. She's a very good writer already, but she's asking me, so what do I do in order to develop my writing skills? And as we were talking it through, one of the things I told her is, well, part of it's just a discipline. You have to do the work. You have to actually sit down and actually write, and it's going to be challenging sometime. So I said, you need to write every day. If you're going to be a writer,
Yes.
she said, do you write every day? I said, I write every day. Not one day goes by of my life that I don't write. Now, sometimes I
Right.
write more, sometimes I write less. And I said, I'm going to give you, this assignment. All I want you to do is compose one well-crafted sentence a day.
Mhm.
By the end of the year, you have 365 well-crafted sentences. She said, do they have to be well-crafted? I said, yeah, they got to be
Yes.
well-crafted sentences. This is
Right.
art. You need to write a sentence you'd be proud to have your mother, your father, your best friend read, So take time at least with one sentence and write more than that. So I appreciate the fact that you understand that it's not only a natural talent that God has given you, but you need to cultivate the talent. You need to put the work in, don't you?
100%. Oh, 100%. I mean, so, me starting this whole cello boxing kind of extravaganza, I mean, that wasn't something that, it's something where I had to learn how to play the cello first, right? And understand the technical things that comes with that. Then I had to also learn how to beatbox, right? And that's something that came over a period of time. And then putting the two together, I started off very, very simple. I was just doing very simple scales doing very, very simple beats, right? And
Right.
then, you know, the next step and the next step, I started making beats with what I was doing. And I would work with rappers. And so they would have like a beat that I would make that's very steady
Mm.
while they were rapping. And then eventually, the thing that actually got me kind of known was this video of me playing a piece by Mark Summer, who's part of the Turtle Island String Quartet, a Grammy Award-winning jazz string quartet, called Julio. He wrote this piece, and this is the first time that I had to do all the musical things throughout one piece that a cellist normally does, which is, you know, takes a lot of practice, and then put a beat on top of it. What people don't know, like, you know, they saw the fame, they saw, oh my gosh, he's a big guy now, and oh my gosh, now he's part of Pentatonics and all this stuff that we've done. What people don't know is that I worked on that one song for a full year before I even put that out
Wow.
on YouTube.
A lot of
Nobody
hours
knows.
in that thing.
I put hours just practicing it, performing it, iterating, reiterating, playing it for my cello teacher, who was like, "What are you doing? This makes no sense." Performing it in front of my classmates, performing it in front of just different people, just to get used to it, because it was the first time that I ever had to do a full piece and make it
Yeah.
musical. And so when it finally got up on YouTube, like, I mean, obviously I didn't expect the response because nobody knows it wasn't a popular song. But when it started getting hundreds of thousands of views to millions of views, which, remember, this is 2011. So at that time, that was virality, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Around YouTube. You know, I was flabbergasted, but I think it's because of the year of practice on just that one piece to be able to make it something that people could say, wow, this is really, really cool. So
Yeah.
it just takes real time.
Yeah, what you're saying reminds me, I don't know, it just triggered something in me. So I'm going to share this with you real quick. See what you think about this. See if you've ever noticed this. This is in the Bible in Psalm 45. And if you open a Bible and you look at the Psalm, you see, you know, verse 1, verse 2, etc. Right? But right before verse 1 of Psalm 45, there's a note. And this is obviously a note that the song composer put in there that's not a part of the song. Okay? So it says here at the beginning of the psalm, it says, to, so it's addressed to someone. This song is to the chief musician, who we think, you know, that's whoever the head musician was of this particular musical group. Maybe it was King David. Maybe David was, because he wrote most of the Psalms. But it says this one is written to the chief musician. This is right in the Bible. And then it says this, Kevin, it says, set to lilies, a contemplation of the sons of Korah, a song of love.
Wow.
So here's the thing. When you read that note at the head of that psalm, it's amazing because, okay, it's to someone. Somebody has written this song and they're presenting it. Hey, maybe this is a worship song we could use for, you know, next worship service. It's to the chief musician. That's who we're presenting this to. And we're letting you know, Mr. Chief Musician, Mrs. Chief Musician, whoever you are, we're letting you know that this song that you're about to read, it is set to lilies. In other words, so what are lilies? Lilies are flowers, beautiful flowers. They're simply saying, hey, we wrote this song keeping lilies in mind. You know, lilies were our muse for this song. So what you're about to read, you know, in these lyrics in this song, Chief Musician, is a song that was inspired by lilies. Isn't that incredible?
So cool.
Yeah. So that's describing the creative process. What's that?
It will be an intention there. There's a serious intention.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes when you create, like, yeah, you want to have intention. Sometimes you're just creating, but then you finally find that one thing that says, oh my gosh, I know where I'm trying to go. And there's a direction there that I mean, you work from, and then all of a sudden it turns into this beautiful, you know, you love that. I love that so much.
Part of my creative process, for example, when I write songs, I'll do that even before I was familiar with this psalm and that little heading at the top. Like I wrote one song where I just said, okay, I'm just going to take the idea, the concept, the vision in my imagination of a beach and a shoreline and two people walking. That's my muse. This song is a contemplation that's based on shoreline, two people walking. And once I have that fixed in my imagination, then all the lyrics begin to flow out up, because then a story is, well, who are these two people and why are they walking? Do they know each other? Is he proposing to her? Is she accepting the proposal? You know what I mean? You can go anywhere with it because now you have a fixed point of creative pursuit, you know? Shoreline, two people walking. What can you do with that? So anyways, I found that fascinating. Right there in the Bible, these guys are saying, hey, just so you know, this is how we engaged in our creative process. We were focusing on lilies.
Well, what I also love about that, especially what you were talking about specific to your example, is that there's creativity within limitation.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's such an important thing because, like you said, it gives people a very defined focus to keep on. And then from there, it's like, how do you make something around that one focus? Like it's not like you're reaching for everything. It's like, no, you have a very specific focus.
Yeah.
And I think the creativity among limitation, I mean, maybe this is a little bit broader of a point in terms of like, I mean, think of the kind of the situation that we're in today with, you know, this crisis that's kind of happening globally. There's a lot of limitations about how we're supposed to, how we can create, but that also means we have to be that much more creative on how we exercise that energy force for creativity. And so like, I think that's super, super important.
Yeah, for sure. So you're a cellist, you're a pianist, you're a cellist, you have that classical background, you're a beatboxer, and you've created a fusion, but you're also a vocalist. Now, of course, beatboxing is a vocal, you know, expression of creativity, but you're also a singer. You sing, and you shared with me that you were that I can't remember the conversation, but somewhere in the conversation you said that you were like focusing on that, or you were trying to develop your singing more. Am I understanding that correctly? Are you 100% venturing into vocal performance or just singing for projects, or what's that?
100%. I mean, you heard me sing on stage probably in Brisbane when we
that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So for me, one thing is that I think sometimes people get hyper focused on just one skill, right? And I'm not saying that it's wrong. I think that helps for mastery. But I also think that to color your art, I think it's really important to try different things, because sometimes when I'm hyper focusing on one skill, I might not necessarily be inspired the whole time to make just one thing based off of one thing I've always known. And so sometimes when I go venture out into other things, then my mind is working again. And I say, oh my gosh, now that helps me do what I do again best. And I'm realizing as I was working on the cello beatboxing thing, as I learned how to do musical arranging, I realized there are things that I started wanting to say that I didn't necessarily know how to say it just through the cello and through the beatboxing thing. And there are specific things I wanted to say, especially about my background, how I grew up. And I was like, how do I say this? And I was like, I have to sing. I have to say something.
Yeah.
You know, and I know also that singing reaches a lot of different people. So that's why I started doing it. So I started in 2015, just started taking vocal lessons. And for me, I was really inspired by Sting. I remember
that.
Yeah.
What he told you something specific that was kind of a turning point?
100%. Oh my gosh. So the thing for me was, you know, when you venture into new things, it's always scary. And that's something that everybody just kind of has to know. You know, I had never been a trained vocalist before, but I was a musician, and I think the musical background definitely helps to make musical choices. But once again, you have to pair what you're hearing with the technical prowess. And so I was just learning about the technical side of singing.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, there are things that I want to do, but I can't do it, and I don't know how to do it. And plus, I was comparing myself to my 4 bandmates, right?
Who are all very, very good vocalists.
Exactly. They have a certain type of style of singing that comes from that musical theater, that, you know, that choral background. So so my head said, oh, well, I have to sing like them because that's a gold standard. And so when I thought about that, I was so frustrated because I was like, oh, I didn't know if I could get there. But then I got to meet Sting backstage when we were doing a performance for the Rockefeller Christmas tree lighting, because he was performing that time. And I told him how inspired I was just by the art that he was doing. And I asked him so much about his singing because I was like, you sing like nobody else. And he goes, listen, I can't sing like any of your bandmates. I don't have a choral background. I don't sing like that. You know, they do all these crazy runs and stuff like that. I don't do that. But I have learned what my voice specifically can do. And that helps me get the arts that I personally want to get out to the world. That's what being an artist is about. It's about figuring out how you get the art that you need to get out there to the world and doing the things that only you can do. And
Singing
when he
with your
finally
voice.
said that, that is exactly what you do with your voice. And so that's what finally gave me the strength to say, oh my gosh. So I'm not trying to sound like Scott Kersey. And I knew that, especially from my cello playing, like the way I play cello, the way I do beatboxing with the cello, that's uniquely me, right? It's not like anybody else. And so I have to remember that the same thing with singing. You just do what you do. And that's what's made so many amazing artists out there.
Yeah,
Bruce
yeah.
Springsteen, you know, U2, Coldplay, like all these people that like they sing like them. They don't have a standard way of singing.
By
And
the
I was
way,
like,
by
oh,
the way, by the way, by the way, you mentioned Bruce Springsteen. I have to throw this in. If you
yeah.
have not, you have to watch Western Stars.
Oh, I've not seen that yet.
Oh, it will, seriously, it will blow your mind. It is 13
Oh.
new songs that he wrote, and with his commentary in between. You know, I watched it for the commentary in between, but the songs are pure art as well. But he talks about his life's journey, and it's one of the best. I guess it's a documentary. It's one of the best things I've ever watched in my life. I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. It was mind blowing.
Is it what, Netflix, Hulu? Like,
I saw it on an airplane, but
oh,
Western Stars, Bruce Springsteen. Yeah.
I'm
Anyway,
writing that
I
down
didn't
right
mean to
now.
interrupt, but you were on a
No,
roll there, and man, dude, I hope you remember what you were about to say because I interrupt.
yeah, no, all good. That was good. Well, no. So what that meant for me was just figuring out, okay, let's start figuring out those things that I can do. But the cool thing is that I feel like I got to learn that while understanding the right way to utilize the voice, because
Right.
I want to be able to tour. I want to be able to do these things that I see my friends do as well, and like what we do as Pentatonics. But I want to be able to know that I can sustain it, because there's so many vocalists that, I mean, lose their voice on tour because they're not necessarily using the right technique. They've been creative, right? And they understand how they want to sound their art, so they've been reaching for that, but they didn't gain all other technical skills that were necessary, right? To be
Yeah.
able to continuously do that every single day on a tour. So it's been cool, and to have A&Rs, so basically artists and repertoire, they call it in the label world, who are willing to help me develop my art as well, listen to the things, comment on it. It's been so good. And it's, you know, I honestly had a conversation with them this year where I feel like we're starting to figure it out, and I'm so clear about the kind of art that I really want to bring out into the world. So it's been a great way to do it and understand who I am and being unapologetic about those things that I am, especially
So in a nutshell, what's the difference between the Pentatonics expression of who you are and the solo work? In a nutshell, what's the
Ooh,
difference?
that's a good, you are
I
great.
want to hear
That's
it.
a
I
great
want to hear
question.
it.
Yeah. You know what? Okay, so I say in one way, the thing that we do in Pentatonics, it's about the way we sing, and it's about the arrangement,
Okay.
right? So it's about taking these songs that people know and figuring out a way to do it in a way that only the voice specifically can do it. The things that only the voice can do that instruments can't, right? I
It's
think
a cappella.
exactly, it's a cappella, but this is a very specific point, because I think a lot of people think that, oh, I think about a cappella, these are vocals trying to sound like synths and guitars and things like. We've decided that's not what we do as Pentatonics. What we do is we know what our voices can do. We're not going to try to sound like synths, because that doesn't make sense. We're not that. We're vocalists. And so
Right.
I think it's a very, very clear distinction that we try to make, and I think it's really helped our brand. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's about the arrangements, how we do stuff. For me, it's about, there's so much more storytelling involved with my art. There's so many things that I'm trying to say that comes from a deeper sense of my background as, you know, an immigrant, a first generation American from immigrant parents, and the stereotypes that have probably been placed upon me, but how I've tried to break through those things. It's telling that story, and
Yeah, yeah.
making sure that I tell it with sound sonically and a voice that is specific to who I am. So in the music that I have, there's a lot of urban sounds because of the hip hop beatboxing background. There's a lot of classical music arrangements
Mm-hmm.
in there, and obviously classical instruments. There's a lot of world sounds from the Afro-Caribbean parts of me, which have been awesome, you know. And so it's just a lot of those, but hopefully, you know, they're real songs, you know,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
at the end of the day, people gravitate to the song. I gravitate to the song first before I think about the sonnets. So
Right,
it's
right.
about knowing that the song hopefully carries those messages. So
Yes.
that's kind of what I think about.
So here's a question for you along those lines. This is very much a question that I love to explore with anybody who's creative and engaged in any kind of creative venture. And the question is this: where is the line between originality and sameness? Similarity, originality and similarity. Okay, because obviously, I mean, let me say it to you this way: we're all like and unlike one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the artist is always taking in, drinking and partaking of the artistic expression of others, right? And then
Right.
it's being rearranged in that unique person, so that, I mean, if you think about it, it's this astounding thing. There's just this endless supply of new music, for example, that just keeps coming forth into the world. I mean, where's all this coming from? Where's it all coming from? It's coming from
Right.
individuals who have taken in the art of others, so that there is no total absolute originality in art. And yet there is total originality in the sense that, you know, you're doing it like nobody else can do it. So where's
Right.
the line between, you know, there's plagiarism. I mean, you know, as an artist, a person can just basically, you know, become an artistic thief and just take stuff from people. And then there's just the normal process of appreciating somebody. You know, you mentioned Sting. Man, his vocals are amazing. But
100%.
yeah, nobody can sing like him, and yet a lot of people have tried.
Right.
And in trying to sound like him, they sound like themselves. Let me say it that way.
So this is a really good question. I really appreciate this. I think about this, especially even like how nations develop. Like there's always going to be a certain sense of, I don't want to say copycatting, but there's a certain sense of digesting and taking things in
That's
when
right.
you're trying to develop, right? And so certain things, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of artists that do that in the beginning. When they hear their favorite band, they're like, oh, we just want to sound like them. But in that process, you realize, oh, there's certain things that they can only do. I can't really do that. So you take the things that you do love and make that yours. But then as you're taking other information, you're taking those things that you love and like trying to incorporate it into your sound. You're trying to take those small pieces, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think that's what it's always been. It's like just listening to the things that I like and saying, okay, I want to take this piece. I like this piece. I like this piece. I like this piece, right? But then it's in your originality is taking those pieces that you love and creating something that is
Yeah.
specific to who you are. So I feel like it's a constant inspired digesting and then
Yeah.
breathing out from your own, you know, oxygen, your own person, what that art is going to be. And I think there's always going to be through lines, right? So one of the things that I always know is like, well, I'm going to make a song, right? So the idea is let me listen to songs throughout history and study great songs, right? What are these songs entail? What are the stories? What are the things, the melodies, right? So now I have a framework that I know what people love from the beginning of time has always been a great song. Okay, but now the way I write a song may have different inflections. It might have a different type of pre-chorus. It may have a different type of bridge. It might be sonically not something that you've really heard before, but the structure's still there, right? You can still have
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same structure, but the things that you personally do within that structure can be completely different.
Yeah.
But it's still a structure that people understand, like a pop formula: verse, chorus, bridge, hook. Okay, but the way you rearrange that can be completely different. The way you do your verse and your praise, but that doesn't mean it's not a format that people can't understand. So I think that's something that's really important to remember. Like, you know, I like to give people that stuff that they can understand, but only in a way that I would tell them.
Yeah, yeah. Talking about digesting music down through history, for sure. My favorite thing that pentatonics does is that thing. What do you call that? Where you begin at the
Oh,
Baroque period, and you're like
yeah.
beginning with like Bach, man, and you're moving all the way. You're like beginning with the Baroque period and moving all the way forward to, I don't know where you end. You know, just pop music in the present. It's
Right.
what do you call that?
So it's called the evolution of music.
Yeah.
It's actually an idea that Scott had, because Scott was like, "Ooh, I really want to do something that they would never expect the voice to do, right? Because a lot of these things like require lots of instruments from like the Baroque period and like, but it was a brilliant idea. So we just sat down on our bus one day and just like went through time and just pieced out all these things that we remember. Like, okay, what are some popular songs from all these decades that people remember? And let's, you
Mm,
know, the transitions were hard, but
yeah.
it was like bringing this way, but only in a way where the voice can explain that journey.
Yeah,
It was
yeah. It's
cool.
brilliant. It's a fun journey. It's a super fun journey, man. You just take it all in one big panorama. It's great. So
Thank
so so the creative process, you know, involves feeding on the creativity of others. I guess we might call, you know, as artists, we're always engaged in a cross pollination, right? So when you're cross pollinating, you know, that means there's a sense in which you are, I don't know if the right word is dependent, but I'll just use that word for one of a better word that's not coming to me, dependent on the social dynamic of art, of creativity. And this coronavirus, man, it has us all, you know, in a sense alone. It has us, you know, there you are sitting in
you.
a room by yourself. You know, I'm sure that Leah's nearby, but so we're socially isolated. How are you navigating the creative process while being separated from people?
For sure. And that's such an important question because I think first thing I want to say is that just because we're physically distancing ourselves doesn't mean we're social distancing ourselves. I want to make
Oh,
the
that's
very
a good distinction.
I want to be very a friend of mine talked to me about this. His name is Daniel Ramamorthy. He was actually my wedding. I am Damn Ram. And he was like, just because we're physically distancing ourselves does not at all mean that we're social distancing. In fact, we have to socially enhance.
Mm, mm,
We
mm.
have to utilizing all of these tools that we have, even though we're not in a physical space where sometimes that's where you get your creative energy from.
Yeah, yeah.
You can still utilize tools like we're using right now, Zoom, social media, email, goodness, phone calls to still continue that social enhancing,
Yeah, yeah.
which I feel like is one of the bedrocks of how we create society, right?
Yeah.
And this is just a very new way, and it's a very new way within, you know, the years that this human civilization has been around. This has been a very different way of how we do it, but it's still a tool that we can use.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think the social enhancing that we've definitely been using is tools like this. I mean, I've told you about this. I started this kind of a Bible study in Los Angeles called Imagine LA. And for our community, we've been using Zoom to connect with our members,
Mhm.
and especially these people who are dreamers, who are creatives, who are young professionals trying to navigate faith in Los Angeles, right? That you can still be creative in this time. It just requires you to be that much more intentional. So
Yeah.
one of the ways I know I've been doing it, is that every day I still have sessions with people, but it's over FaceTime. The cool
Right.
thing about FaceTime is that the audio is actually really superior, I personally think, than phone lines. And so I can hear really well what the producer is doing in the other room. And because I have my own setup of recording, as I'm listening to what's going on, I can actually record stuff here, send that over to them, the files via WeTransfer, whatever file sharing app you would use. And so we'll be able to converse like that. And it's actually been pretty good. And songwriters were still able to feel the energy when we're writing lyrics depending on the melodies and stuff. So I've actually been doing sessions every single day, and it's been really, really
Wow.
productive.
Good for you, man. I'm glad you're staying connected. So say what was that articulation? It was so we're physically distancing but not socially distancing.
Exactly. I don't like the word social distancing because that
No,
also means
it's
we're
not a
not.
good idea, is it?
No, that's not what we're
I mean,
doing. We
right
have
now we're
to
socially connected. Right now, this
exactly.
moment. Yeah.
Exactly. We're socially connected. I still feel your energy, albeit, of course, I like being with you in person, Ty, because you are the man. What's
Yeah,
up?
I love being with you in person because those muscles, man, inspire me to work out. As soon as I grab hold of your hunky body and feel those muscles, I'm like, come on, Ty, come on, come on.
Oh,
You
that
inspired
is
me.
so. But yeah, but no, but exactly. We're social enhancing right now. We're not
Yeah,
social distancing ourselves. We are physically
that's
distant
right.
because of
That's
Jesus.
right.
So
But we're
I think
going
this
to
is
come
so
back
important.
together. I mean, we can't even have regular worship service now, but that leads to maybe one more question, maybe two more questions that I'd like to probe your brain on.
Sure.
So when the church comes together in corporate worship and when the church is together as a corporate body, as a worldwide movement, from your experience, and I'm not looking for criticism, but healthy critique if necessary. Do you think that the church in general values the creative aspect of the human expression? I mean, does the church sufficiently value and utilize creativity and art? And do you feel like the church really encourages and inspires and empowers those who have artistic talent to use their artistic talent for the glory of God?
Sure. That's a good question. This is what I'll say, that art is subjective, right? Art
Mhm.
allows you to express things that you're thinking and feeling. And because of that, there's a lot of gray areas when it comes to art. How do you express something that you're wanting to express into the world, right? And sometimes that means you're going to have to show light, but you're also maybe going to have to show dark,
Mm,
right? And the thing about church sometimes is because we believe in Jesus and who he is, sometimes what's easier is expressing the black whiteness of things. For example, the commandments, things that are easy things to follow that people
mhm,
can understand so that they can know that they're building a relationship with Jesus.
mhm.
But art is not necessarily that way, right? And so I think because of that, there has to be a safe way to help people who have been given that gift to
Mhm.
figure out ways to express themselves and to have those conversations with other artists. Once again, I mean, this is why I started this Bible study Imagine LA, because I felt like I met a lot of people who wanted to utilize their artistic gifts, but because of that, there's a lot of gray area where they're going to have to express some things that are maybe dark, but to
Mhm.
showcase the light,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, they might have to use sounds that don't sound Christian, if you will, just to say that.
To
But
communicate.
that's but to communicate something that maybe somebody who doesn't come from the Christian world can actually understand,
Mhm.
right? But now this doesn't mean that we're going to not follow the laws of God or the rules of God. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that at all. But it does mean you may have to explore the dark. You have to explore the gray in a way that is conducive because that's what shows empathy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also, who is it that is in the position to, on the artistic level, really be the arbiter of this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is evil? As you said, art is subjective. That's not to say that there's not something that is objectively ugly, for
Right. No, no,
example, or
exactly.
objectively beautiful. But oftentimes there's a fear that drives some believers to create lines and parameters that God has not created, that the
Mhm.
Lord God of heaven has not created, but we have rules about things that God doesn't even have rules about.
Exactly. 100%. We create those rules for ourselves. And I don't think God has asked us to do that outside of the things that he's called us to do, right? I think there are certain things that we restrict ourselves because we just don't think that's right. I, I will also say, I think because I'm not going to pretend like living in Los Angeles and the entertainment business is in a dark place. There is a lot of darkness there, right? But darkness is there so that we can shine light.
That's right. That's
There's
right.
a point there. So when people say that, like there's a lot of nervousness because they're like, oh no, well you're gonna go into the dark. Oh no, oh my gosh, you're gonna not have Jesus. No, if God's called you to that, you have to have enough faith and trust that He's gonna help you figure out how to navigate that in this way that's specific to who He is, but what He's also uniquely called you to do, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you need community to be able to help create a safe space specific to that you can talk about these things, that you can figure out, well, okay, well, hey, I'm supposed to work with this producer. He's done some pretty crazy stuff, but he wants me to use this. He wants me to use my gift. Well, okay, well, let's talk about it. At least let's have the conversation rather than, oh, well, no, because Jesus, no. Let's have a conversation. What do you bring to the light there that he's maybe never seen? Because maybe there's been no Christian that he feels like he can be in contact with that understands those urban sounds, those darker sounds, whatever. Maybe you're the person that he can be there who understands that empathy, but then you can be there to show him light. You have no idea. But listen, I think about Daniel, right? Daniel and his friends were asked to go to Babylon and study the Babylonian way, right? That stuff is apart from God. It's pagan.
Right.
Does that mean that they don't study it? Does that mean that they don't understand it excellently? Absolutely not. Does that mean that they have completely rejected God? Absolutely not. That's never what happened with them.
Right.
What they said that they would do is that they would learn and study their ways and understand so that they may be excellent, but they take what they can take that is maybe actually good for them. I don't know what stuff that might have been. They understand it, but then they still honor God through all of that. Daniel was, with King Darius, he was the top of 120 satraps or 120 leaders, right? He was one of the top 3 because there was an excellent spirit found in him. I'm sure King Darius probably asked him to do some things that were maybe a little bit difficult for him. But he's probably, now I don't know necessarily in the situation what maybe he did, but he's probably thinking, this has no reflection about who I am as a Christian and who I am as a follower of Jesus Christ. There are certain things that will reflect upon me that I cannot do. But if there are things that he is decreeing me to do that doesn't affect my relationship with Jesus, I might have to just render certain things that are render to Caesar what is Caesar's and render to God what's God's. And you have to start to figure those things out. It's just really hard to do. But that doesn't mean we're not called to not do that.
That's right.
And so that's always the way I try to approach these things. And like I said, like that's one of the reasons I try to start community in Los Angeles specifically for that, because there are a lot of Christians that feel like they can't have those conversations. How do you be excellent in the world, in the eyes of the world? I want to study the things that the world has to offer. It's like, study them. But now, how do you bring the light of Jesus into all of that?
Amen.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's hard.
So,
it's a hard thing.
When you read the book of Daniel, you get the distinct impression through the story that because there was an excellent spirit in Daniel, that gave him credibility and opened doors to him. He ended up being the second in command in the pagan empire. Come on.
Exactly.
This guy was not standing around criticizing and spewing negativity left, right, and center and making himself obnoxious in the presence of those who didn't believe. He was intentionally trying to make God beautiful in their eyes, and because of the good attitude, the good spirit that was in him, they exalted him and they put him in amazing positions. Kevin, there's an excellent spirit in you. I've witnessed it. I know you, and God has given you an excellent spirit, and that has opened doors for you. I mean, people have honored you. We don't need to go into the details, but you have certain convictions. You have certain convictions as a follower of Jesus. And because you positioned yourself and postured yourself with a good attitude toward people, they honored your convictions and made accommodations for you. I mean, they restructured stuff so that you could be honored in your convictions in your relationship with Jesus. If you would have had, what would be the opposite of an excellent spirit? Daniel had an excellent spirit. If you had a bad spirit, a negative spirit, an obnoxious spirit, Well, they wouldn't open those doors to you. They would have said, "Man, we're done with you, man. You're mean. You're ugly. You're an idiot. Why are you coming at us with all of this judgment and condemnation? We don't even believe what you believe."
100%. And I think that's why, like, being in the world, it's about cultivating the fruits of the spirit: love, joy, peace, right? Diligence,
Yeah.
excellence, so that people cannot, like, with Daniel, for example, they couldn't find anything to blame him with.
Right.
And I think that's the issue sometimes. If
Mm.
sometimes people put, I'm not saying don't be a follower of God, but sometimes I think people put it in a way where people think you're just being obnoxious, so they're like, I just don't even want to deal with you. It's
Yeah.
like, just be a loving human that showcases the love of Jesus, and be firm about who you are, but do it in a
Mhm.
way that shows love, and also still within an organization, within the world of creativity, be excellent at what you do, so that they can't find fault, they can't find blame, but they also know that you add value. So
Yeah.
that when they add value, there's now space
Mhm.
created for you to do what you do best,
Exactly.
so that you can continue to add that value. One of the things for me, I obviously believe in the Sabbath. I believe in that God gave us time to create. God asked us to do less so that He can do more. That's what I see.
Oh, yes. God has
God,
us to do. Wait. You can't go by that. That's so good. That should be like a Bible verse. What is that? God asks us to do less so he can do more.
that's exactly what I think this is.
Hmm.
I think God is, in so many ways, what God wants us to do 100% through the commandments, through the things He's asked us to, but through a relationship,
Hmm.
is to trust, surrender, and trust. And who better to surrender and trust than the person who made the birds of the air and provides for them, but wants to do more for you than the birds of the air,
Yeah, yeah.
right? He wants to do
Mhm.
more for you than you could ever think,
Yeah.
but we put limitations on ourselves. God says, you know what? Take time and just spend time with me. Have a date day with me.
Hmm.
Now, you may be thinking in your head, well, I got to do this. I got to do this. Like, God's like, you do less. Take a second and just enjoy me and rest, so that I can do more in your life.
Mhm.
Now, what that also means is that there's going to be more diligence on your part during those 6 days of the week that you have. There's more diligence. There has to be a higher level of excellence. But I love that, because that means you have to truly be the best version that you can be, so that you can spend more time with God, knowing that you've done everything that you've done on the 6 days, and now you got the seventh day to say, you know what, I want to do less now, so that
Mhm.
God can do more in my life.
Yeah.
I think that's just so beautiful. So I know I've seen that with pentatonics, that all the stuff that's happened for us, once again, I worship between sunset Friday to sunset Saturday, because that's something I believe God's asked us to do throughout
Mhm.
creation. And I've always had that as something that's been grounding for me. And when I first told my band about it, now granted, when I first told them about it, I was nervous, I was scared, and I
Yeah.
didn't do it perfectly. I will be very honest about that. I would do gigs on Saturdays when we were first starting, because I didn't know how to bring it up. So I never said I'm not perfect at all, right?
Mhm.
But my sister, who's a prayer warrior, she told
She
me,
is. She
you
is.
know my sister, she's a prayer warrior. It was the summer of 2012. She said, Kevin, listen, if you know that God has this for you, and this is something that He's commanded His children to do, you need to trust Him. You need to absolutely trust Him that He will provide for you. And if He didn't, and if He doesn't, then it was never for you anyway.
Hmm.
So for me, what I did is I told my band, and I explained it to them, like, this is something that I have to do. And I'm so sorry that I've never brought this up. I was scared, and I didn't feel like I could, because they always tell you in the music industry, you're supposed to grind, right? And so, but I'm realizing that I have to do this, because this helps me be the best me that I can be. And I said, if this is not something we can work out, then once again, I'm down to find you guys another beatboxer. But one thing that I think Scott had said, for example, he said, we're five very, very different people, right? We all have things that are different about us, but we all need to respect each other. So let's try this. Let's see how this works. And also, I think I tried to give a lot of value to the organization in terms of my ability to arrange, my ability to time manage, because I did a lot of the time managing for the band at the beginning, because I had those skills from college. Those things, to where, I added value to where they said they really wouldn't want to lose me for that situation. And literally only God is blessed. Honestly, the band loves that I do Sabbath because now they're like, I can just live my life and do my own thing. So they do their own thing in that time. You know, they do their own thing during that time, but like I get to have this day. And I think because we've done stuff excellently as a band, other
Yeah.
people have also made accommodations. Like Kelly Clarkson, you know, we toured with her summer of 2015, and the thing is, she does Friday night concerts. And so this was one of the times where I thought my band was going to say, you know what, Kevin, this is where we say goodbye to you. But I think once again, because of the excellence that we had brought, I think as a group, and she wanted us so bad, she says, I'm going to do something specific for you guys. On Friday nights, I'm going to let you guys go early so that before the sun sets. And then on Saturday, I'm going to let my set be later in the night so that you guys can go on after the sun sets. And remember, this is summertime. The sun sets at like 8:30.
Yeah.
So she's going on pretty late. Right. So she's going on pretty late. But the fact that she allowed us to do that because she loves exactly what we did is just so humbling. And it just taught me that whatever you do, be excellent at it, because that's what creates space for people to allow you to do what you do to the best of your ability, and they'll make accommodations. So I've always tried to keep that in mind.
Be excellent at what you do, but also be excellent in spirit.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
which
yes.
we mentioned with Daniel. You know, you could have had an attitude about it, like, oh, you know, the seventh day is the Sabbath, and you know, you guys, you know, this is wrong, and you oughta, and you know, you could have had an attitude, and they would have just said, what in the world? What is this? But you were like, hey, I'm really sorry about this, and you genuinely were, and man, and that beautiful spirit came through, and like we said, they would want to accommodate that.
Which has
Man,
been great.
yeah, it's just a blessing. You guys are probably the only, I don't know, probably the only, you know, Grammy Award winning band that keeps the Sabbath. I mean, you're keeping it, and they're kind of keeping it because you're keeping it in that sense.
Right.
It's a beautiful thing. Brother, I have one more question. I love to ask this question to people just in conversations in general in life. I believe, and you believe, that God is the epicenter of all beauty. That God is beautiful in the extreme, attractive, alluring, drawing. God is beautiful. Don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay. For you right now, what would you regard as the most beautiful or attractive or your favorite attribute of the character of God?
I really think it's the space of empathy in which God really sees his children.
Empathy. That's beautiful.
Empathy.
Define the word
Because
empathy for us. Define the word. Define the word.
empathy to me personally is humbling yourself to listen to other people and really putting yourself in a position to understand as much as you possibly can where they're coming from. Because every single person obviously has a story.
Yeah.
And so when people see people doing certain things and not understanding and being, you know, ticked off that like, I can't believe they're doing this. Like, well, take a second, stop. You don't know how they were raised. You don't know where they came from. You don't know what was in their DNA. You don't know what's in their biology. But God does. How dare I be that quick to judge somebody?
Right.
Somebody is different than me in, I mean, just so many things, right? And so we're quick to judge people. And then God's like, I've never asked you to do that. Let me, because I know their whole situation. I know the generations that came before them that brought them to a space where this is what their family background's like. How are you going to do a job that I'm supposed to do?
Yeah.
And so that's why I think that empathy just creates a space for understanding and real human connection, because that's where love, you know, that's where real love comes from. I mean, I just recently got married, and you know my wife, Lee. And I think she has the most incredible way of doing that. She just loves people because she loves them. Like it really is amazing to me. And I had, I think, a hard time with that, because I think sometimes in church they talk about this truth and grace debate, right? How much truth you're supposed to have, how much grace you're supposed to have. And God was 100% truth, 100% grace. But she just knows how to show so much grace to people.
Mm,
And like I see that empathetic spirit in her, and that makes me want to be so much better. To
yeah.
just understand, listen to them and understand. That's what makes great art, I think.
Mm.
Truly. I mean, some of the
Empathy.
art that
Yeah.
I've tried to make is where I just listen to people. Just like just listen. Don't try to add your commentary, your judgment. Just listen.
Yeah.
You'll learn stuff from there that you've never probably even thought to think about. And you know, I have a few songs like that where I mean, those are the songs that the label's really been touched by, which has been super cool. So I don't know. It's just I think the character of empathy is what allows real transformation to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Jesus is obviously um, like the epitome, the embodiment of empathy. We call it the incarnation. This is the
yeah,
God of the universe coming all the way down to become a member of the human race, to enter into solidarity with the human race. This is the ultimate act of empathy, is for God to get right in the midst of our situation and to become one of us. And oh, wow, it's just, if that's not beautiful, if that's not beautiful, nothing is. It's just incredible. So thank
exactly.
you. So
And
empathy.
it doesn't stop there. But it doesn't stop there as well, because if you have the like-mindedness of Jesus, then you know Jesus never wanted it to stop there. He wanted to say, like, I want to understand, listen, learn, love, but then I want to pull you along to see things that maybe you've never seen.
Yeah.
So that you see a character of Jesus that you've never seen, and you say, oh, now that you understand me, now I now understand how this could be attractive.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
I'm ready to understand who Jesus is and surrender my life to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's empathy just opens a space where the guard is down, so
Yes.
that when you understand, then you can speak to the person's experience, what you really listened, and
Mhm.
hopefully show Jesus in a way because they trust you to.
Mm.
You're
Amen. Amen.
not coming from a
Hallelujah,
place
brother.
attacking. You're coming to like, I understand you and I feel love you.
Yeah. Kevin, brother, thank you for taking this time to explore creativity with me and the creative process. And it's been a joy. This has been a great conversation. We've had conversations like this ourselves, but I thought other people would benefit from just kind of listening in on just what goes on in you know, in your mind as a creative individual that God has called to express the beauty of his character through art. So thank you. And make sure you tell Lee hello for me.
I will. I
Yeah,
will.
yeah, yeah. Give her a hug, or maybe right now it's just high fives or you know, hello across the room. No, you guys are staying safe. Are you
Yeah.
following the protocols, social distancing or physical
Yeah,
distancing?
man. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, she and I are in this one space doing what we do. You know, it's honestly been good. Like, it feels like an extended honeymoon for us. That's why
Ah,
we've really enjoyed it. Like, we've been hanging out, we like laugh every single day. We've been watching movies. You know
yeah.
what I mean? It's been really, honestly, it's been really good. She'll come into the studio while I'm like producing. Right now, she's making Nigerian food, which is super cool. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
Ah,
Has she ever
but,
made
but
Nigerian food, or she's
no, she has.
experimenting? Yeah.
No, she loves Nigerian food. I'm like, this is awesome.
Wow, wow,
This is
wow.
like, this
Oh,
is
are there aromas
exactly
in
the
the
way
house?
that I do. Say what?
Are there aromas in the house right now?
Oh, and there is. Oh, there is. I'm living my life, and I've been trying to stay focused this whole time of this conversation.
Okay, I'll let
It's
you
a little
go then.
difficult.
I was actually hoping she would pop in and say hi, but you give her my enthusiastic greetings. Hi from Ty. See how that rhymes? It's very artistic. Hi from Ty. That's a poem in itself. Hi from Ty to Lee.
Oh my! I will absolutely let her know that poem.
Okay. All right, man. Thanks so much for your time, and
Thank
enjoy
you.
that Nigerian food, whatever it is
I
that she's
will.
making
Thank you
for
so much
you.
for having me.
All
Thank you
right.
so much
God
for having me.
bless.
Thank you.